The neon lights of Lumora Prime flickered weakly against the heavy rain, casting distorted reflections on the puddle-strewn streets. Dr. Elias Vey tightened his coat as he stepped out of his small veterinary clinic, locking the door behind him. It had been a long day filled with cases, some routine, others bizarre, but nothing that truly stood out. At least, not until now. As he turned the corner into an alley shortcut to his apartment, something caught his eye. A faint glow pulsed rhythmically amidst the shadows near a pile of discarded crates. Curious, Elias approached cautiously, his medical instincts kicking in despite the late hour and the eerie atmosphere. What he found stopped him cold. There, lying motionless on the wet ground, was a creature unlike anything he'd ever seen before. Its sleek body shimmered with iridescent scales that seemed to shift colors under the dim light. Bioluminescent markings traced intricate patterns along its sides, glowing softly even in its unconscious state. But what struck Elias most were the wounds marring its otherwise flawless form. Jagged tears marred its flesh, exposing strange metallic components beneath, clear evidence of advanced engineering fused seamlessly with organic tissue. Elias crouched beside the creature, his heart pounding. Was it dangerous? Should he call authorities or leave it be? Yet, as he looked closer, he noticed how shallow its breathing had become. Whatever this thing was, it needed help. And fast. All right. Elias muttered to himself, shaking off his hesitation. Let's get you inside. He carefully wrapped the creature in his coat and carried it back to his clinic. Despite its alien appearance, it felt surprisingly warm, almost like holding a living ember. Once inside, he laid it gently on an examination table and began assessing its injuries. The wounds weren't just physical. They appeared to have been inflicted by some kind of energy weapon, leaving burn marks around the edges. Even more puzzling were the cybernetic elements embedded within its body. They hummed faintly, emitting a low-frequency vibration that made Elias's fingers tingle when he touched them. For hours, Elias worked tirelessly, cleaning the wounds, repairing damaged circuits, and administering antibiotics. He wasn't sure if the drugs would work on such a hybrid organism, but he couldn't stand by and do nothing. As dawn broke over the city, the creature stirred slightly, its glowing markings flaring brighter for a moment before dimming again. Elias leaned back in his chair, exhausted but satisfied. He didn't know what this creature was, or where it came from, but one thing was certain: it deserved a chance to live. Little did he realize, however, that saving it would bring far more trouble than he could imagine. Unbeknownst to Elias, news of the creature's disappearance had already reached the highest levels of power. Queen Seraphine of the Celestial Dominion sat in her floating palace, staring at a holographic image of the very same being. Her pet, a guardian of immense value, was missing, and she would stop at nothing to retrieve it. Meanwhile, bounty hunters across Lumora Prime received encrypted messages offering lucrative rewards for its capture. And all the while, Elias remained blissfully unaware, focused solely on nursing the mysterious creature back to health. But fate had other plans. The stolen starship surged through the void of space, its engines humming steadily as it carried Elias and Orcs away from Lumora Prime. For the first time in days, they were free, or so it seemed. As they traveled through hyperspace, streaks of light blurring past the cockpit windows, Elias allowed himself a moment to breathe. But his mind raced with questions. Who was Queen Seraphine? What role did Orcs truly play in her empire? And most importantly, where could they possibly go to escape the Dominion's reach? Orcs sat quietly beside him, its bioluminescent markings glowing softly in the dimly lit cabin. Occasionally, it would hum or nudge Elias gently, as if sensing his turmoil. Despite everything, Elias felt comforted by its presence. Whatever lay ahead, he knew they would face it together. As the ship approached their destination, a remote refueling station near the edge of Dominion-controlled space, Elias decided to delve deeper into Orcs' memories. Using a portable neural interface salvaged from Cal's data chip, He connected to the dormant circuits within Oris's cybernetic core. The connection flooded his mind with vivid images and emotions, overwhelming yet enlightening. He saw glimpses of Oris's creation, an ancient laboratory filled with brilliant scientists crafting hybrid beings designed to bridge organic life and synthetic technology. These guardians weren't mere pets. They were living conduits for balance, tasked with maintaining harmony between civilizations. Over centuries, however, corruption had seeped into the Dominion's leadership. Greed and power struggles turned these noble creatures into tools of control, used to enforce the Queen's will rather than protect universal peace. One memory stood out sharply. Queen Seraphine standing beside Oris, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, "Forgive me." She had sent Oris away centuries ago, hoping it might find freedom beyond her fractured empire. Yet, even in exile, Oris remained tied to her, not just as a companion, but as a symbol of hope for renewal. When Elias broke the connection, he sat stunned, the weight of what he'd learned pressing heavily on his shoulders. He looked at Oris, whose glowing eyes met his with quiet understanding. "You're not just her pet," Elias murmured. "You're part of something much bigger." Their revelation was cut short when alarms blared throughout the ship. A squadron of Dominion vessels had intercepted them, surrounding the starship with menacing precision. On screen, a holographic message appeared, displaying the stern face of Commander Vera, one of the Queen's highest-ranking enforcers. "Dr. Vey, you are harboring stolen property," Vera declared coldly. "Surrender the creature immediately, or we will use force." Elias clenched his fists, fear battling resolve. Surrendering Oris meant condemning it to servitude, or worse. Fighting back meant risking both their lives. Before he could decide, Oris stepped forward, its body beginning to glow brighter and brighter. Energy crackled around it as dormant protocols activated, transforming it into a majestic hybrid form. Its sleek frame expanded, shimmering scales hardening like armor, while its bioluminescent markings pulsed with radiant power. With a deafening roar, Oris unleashed a wave of energy that disabled the Dominion ship's weapon systems, creating an opening for their escape. Elias stared in awe, realizing this was Oris's true nature, a guardian capable of defending itself and those it cared about. "Hold on," Elias shouted, gripping the controls. With adrenaline coursing through him, he piloted the ship through the chaos, narrowly avoiding collisions as they broke free from the blockade. Behind them, the Dominion fleet scrambled to regroup, but Elias and Oris were already speeding toward uncharted territory. As they entered the safety of deep space, Elias glanced at Oris, now returned to its calmer state. "You saved us," he said softly. "But I have a feeling this isn't over." For the first time, Elias understood the magnitude of their journey. They weren't running from danger. They were heading toward destiny. Together, they would confront the truth about the Dominion, the Queen, and the fragile balance holding the galaxy together. The calm Elias had managed to maintain in his clinic began to unravel as the days went by. Strange events escalated, turning from minor disturbances into outright threats. One morning, he found his examination table overturned, tools scattered across the floor, and a single word scrawled on the wall in glowing red letters, asterisk, or ETURN. Asterisk, the message sent chills down his spine, but what frightened him most was the realization that whoever, or whatever, had done this had bypassed his security system without triggering an alarm. Elias knew they weren't safe anymore. He couldn't keep pretending this was just paranoia or coincidence. Someone wanted Oris back, and badly. But who? And why? All he could think about were the visions Oris had shown him, the regal figure standing beside the creature, and the sense of urgency radiating from those images. Was it possible that Oris belonged to someone powerful, someone dangerous? That night, Elias sat in the dim light of his clinic, staring at Oris as it rested quietly on its makeshift bed. "I don't know what you are," he whispered, almost to himself, "but I can't let them take you." Oris lifted its head, its bioluminescent markings glowing faintly, It let out a soft hum, tilting its head as if trying to reassure him. Elias sighed, running a hand through his hair. He needed help. Fighting off bounty hunters or rogue agents wasn't something he could do alone. But trusting anyone felt like a risk he couldn't afford. He remembered Cal, a reclusive hacker and old acquaintance who owed him a favor. Cal lived in the Undercity, a sprawling maze of abandoned tunnels and decaying structures beneath Lemora Prime. It was a dangerous place, filled with criminals, scavengers, and malfunctioning AI constructs. But Elias didn't have many options left. After securing Orcs safely in the back room, he ventured into the depths of the city, hoping Cal would still be willing to assist. Cal greeted him warily when Elias arrived at his hideout, an old maintenance hub overrun with wires and screens flickering with code. "You look like hell," Cal said bluntly, leaning against a rusted console. "I need your help," Elias replied, cutting straight to the point. "There's something after me. After us." After listening to Elias's story, Cal agreed to dig deeper, but only because he owed Elias for saving his dog years ago. Within hours, Cal uncovered fragments of information that painted a chilling picture. Orcs wasn't just some exotic animal. It was part of an ancient lineage of bioengineered beings created by the Celestial Dominion. These creatures served as guardians, bridging organic life and synthetic technology to maintain balance within the Empire. And Orcs, it wasn't just any guardian. It was the Queen's personal companion, a symbol of her authority and power. "She'll stop at nothing to get it back," Cal warned, his voice low. "And so will her enemies." Before Elias could process this revelation, the sound of distant footsteps echoed through the tunnels. Red warning lights flashed overhead, accompanied by mechanical whirring. Bounty hunters. They'd been followed. "Time to go," Cal shouted, grabbing a plasma rifle from a nearby rack. Together, they raced through the twisting corridors, dodging drones and energy blasts. Orcs, sensing danger, activated dormant protocols within itself, emitting a high-pitched frequency that disrupted their pursuers' weapons. The trio narrowly escaped into the labyrinthine Undercity, but not before Cal revealed one final betrayal. He'd been coerced into tracking Elias. Agents of the Dominion had threatened his life unless he led them to Orcs. Cornered and outnumbered, Elias faced a choice: surrender Orcs to save himself or fight for their freedom. Clutching Orcs close, he made his decision. "We're not giving up," he growled, determination burning in his eyes. For the first time, Elias realized protecting Orcs wasn't just about compassion. It was about survival. Their journey was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. The Undercity of Lemora Prime was a place where light rarely reached, its jagged ruins and corroded tunnels swallowed by perpetual shadows. It was here that Elias, Cal, and Orcs fled, pursued relentlessly by bounty hunters and Dominion enforcers. The air grew colder as they descended deeper into the labyrinth, their footsteps echoing against crumbling walls. Every corner seemed to hide danger: malfunctioning drones, rogue AI constructs, or worse, ambushes set by their relentless pursuers. Elias carried Orcs in his arms, its sleek body trembling slightly despite its resilience. He could feel the faint hum of its cybernetic core vibrating against his chest, a reminder of the extraordinary bond they shared. Orcs wasn't just an animal. It was intelligent, aware, and fighting alongside him in its own way. When one of the bounty hunters fired an energy blast at them, Orcs emitted a sharp pulse from its markings, disrupting the weapon's targeting system and causing it to explode harmlessly against a wall. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," Cal shouted over his shoulder, firing back with his plasma rifle. Despite his betrayal earlier, Cal had chosen to stay with them, perhaps out of guilt or maybe because he realized the stakes were bigger than any reward the Dominion could offer. As they navigated the treacherous terrain, Elias noticed subtle changes in Orcs' behavior. Its glowing patterns shifted rapidly, almost like it was trying to communicate something urgent. Then, without warning, Orcs leaped from Elias's arms, Landing gracefully on all fours, it darted ahead, stopping briefly to look back at him before continuing forward. "Wait," Elias called out, but Oris didn't stop. Instead, it led them through narrow passages and collapsed structures until they reached what appeared to be an ancient vault door embedded in the rock. Strange symbols etched into the metal glowed faintly, responding to Oris's presence. With a low hum, the massive door creaked open, revealing the hidden chamber filled with glowing crystals and advanced machinery long abandoned. This is impossible," Cale muttered, staring wide-eyed at the technology. "It's centuries old, yet still functional." Oris moved toward a central console, its limbs touching specific points that lit up in response. A holographic map materialized above the console, showing routes leading out of the Undercity and into a nearby spaceport. One route was highlighted, a risky but viable escape path. "It wants us to leave," Elias said, understanding dawning on him. "It's guiding us." Cale hesitated, torn between fear and awe. "If we follow this plan, we'll have every bounty hunter and Dominion agent breathing down our necks." "You sure about this?" Elias didn't hesitate. "We don't have a choice. Staying here means getting caught, or worse." With renewed determination, the trio prepared for their final dash to freedom. Using the map provided by Oris, they navigated through increasingly hazardous areas, avoiding traps and engaging in brief skirmishes with their pursuers. At one point, Cale sacrificed himself to hold off a group of enforcers, buying Elias and Oris precious time to escape. "I'm sorry for everything," Cale said grimly, handing Elias a data chip containing coordinates for a stolen starship docked at the spaceport. "Take care of her. And yourself." Tears welled in Elias's eyes as he nodded, clutching the chip tightly. With Oris by his side, he pushed onward, vowing not to let Cale's sacrifice be in vain. As they finally emerged from the Undercity and approached the spaceport, Elias felt a mix of relief and dread. They were closer to freedom than ever before, but the hardest part was yet to come. The Dominion wouldn't give up easily, and neither would its enemies. For now, though, Elias focused on one thing: survival. Together, he and Oris boarded the starship, engines roaring to life as they prepared to leave Lumora Prime behind. But as the ship ascended into the stars, Elias couldn't shake the feeling that their journey was only beginning, and that the true challenges lay far beyond the horizon. Over the next few days, Elias dedicated himself to caring for the mysterious creature. He named it Oris, after the golden glow of its bioluminescent markings, which seemed to pulse like a heartbeat whenever it moved. Oris' recovery was slow but steady, and Elias marveled at how resilient it was despite its injuries. What intrigued him most, however, were the strange cybernetic implants embedded in its body. They weren't just random pieces of machinery. They appeared to be part of its very essence, blending seamlessly with its organic tissue. Elias spent hours studying the implants under a microscope. The technology was unlike anything he'd ever encountered. Tiny circuits glowed faintly, humming with energy that resonated through the air. It was as if the implants were alive, communicating with the creature's nervous system in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. At times, he felt an odd tingling sensation when he touched them, almost as if they were responding to his presence. Despite its alien nature, Oris showed signs of intelligence far beyond any ordinary animal. When Elias approached, it would tilt its head and watch him intently, its large, luminous eyes reflecting curiosity rather than fear. Sometimes, it made soft, melodic sounds, low hums and clicks, that echoed strangely in the quiet clinic. Though Elias couldn't understand what these noises meant, they gave him the impression that Oris was trying to communicate. One evening, as Elias sat beside Oris, jotting down notes about its progress, something unexpected happened. The creature reached out with one of its slender, clawed limbs and gently tapped his hand. Startled, Elias froze, unsure of what to do. But instead of pulling away, Oris pressed its limb against his palm again, holding it there firmly. A sudden warmth spread through Elias's arm, followed by a flood of images flashing in his mind. Stars swirling in vast galaxies, towering spires floating among clouds, and a regal figure standing beside Oris. The vision lasted only seconds, but it left Elias breathless. When he blinked back to reality, Oris had withdrawn its limb and was watching him calmly, as if waiting for a reaction. Shaking his head, Elias tried to dismiss the experience as exhaustion or stress-induced imagination. Yet deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that Oris had shown him something important, something real. Meanwhile, outside the safety of Elias's clinic, whispers of Oris' disappearance began spreading across Lumora Prime. Queen Seraphine, ruler of the Celestial Dominion, paced anxiously in her opulent throne room. Her prized companion, a being both pet and guardian, was missing, and without it, her empire teetered on the edge of chaos. Agents loyal to her scoured every corner of the city, offering hefty rewards for information leading to its recovery. Bounty hunters, pirates, and opportunists alike joined the hunt, driven by greed and ambition. Back in the clinic, Elias remained oblivious to the growing storm brewing around him. His focus was entirely on Oris, whose condition continued to improve. One day, while cleaning its wounds, Elias noticed faint symbols glowing softly beneath its scales. They looked like ancient runes, shifting and rearranging themselves before fading away. Intrigued, he decided to research their meaning, hoping to uncover more about Oris's origins. But time was running out. Unknown to Elias, two shadowy figures lurked near his clinic, observing his every move. Their leader, a ruthless bounty hunter known only as Kryn, tapped a finger impatiently on his datapad. "That's it," he growled into his comm device. "We found it. Prepare the extraction team." As night fell over Lumora Prime, the city buzzed with anticipation. Somewhere in its labyrinthine streets, a man and a creature unknowingly held the key to a power struggle spanning galaxies. And soon, their peaceful sanctuary would shatter under the weight of forces far greater than either of them could imagine. As the days passed, Elias and Oris grew closer. Their bond deepened in ways neither of them could have anticipated. Though they couldn't speak the same language, their connection transcended words. Oris seemed to understand Elias's intentions, responding to his care with subtle gestures. A tilt of its head, a soft hum, or even a gentle nudge with its sleek body. In return, Elias found himself drawn to Oris in a way he'd never felt before. It wasn't just gratitude for saving it. It was something more profound, as if their fates were intertwined by forces beyond comprehension. Elias began noticing small changes in himself, too. Ever since Oris had tapped his hand that night, strange things started happening. He felt calmer, sharper, and unusually attuned to his surroundings. Sounds seemed clearer, colors brighter, and his dreams became vivid and surreal. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw glimpses of distant worlds, endless fields of glowing flowers under twin suns, oceans shimmering with liquid light, and towering cities floating among the stars. And always there was Oris, standing beside him, guiding him through these visions. One morning, while tending to Oris's wounds, Elias decided to test something. He held out his hand cautiously, mimicking what Oris had done days earlier. To his surprise, Oris responded immediately, placing its limb gently against his palm. The warmth returned, stronger this time, flooding his mind with images of a grand palace surrounded by swirling clouds. In the vision, a regal figure stood on a balcony, gazing down at him with piercing eyes. Beside her was Oris, glowing brighter than ever. The scene shifted suddenly, showing the same figure kneeling in despair, clutching a fragment of shattered metal. When Elias snapped back to reality, he was trembling. What are you?" he whispered, staring at Oris. The creature simply blinked slowly, its markings pulsing softly, as if acknowledging his question. For the first time, Elias wondered if Oris wasn't just some stray animal but something far more significant. Despite his growing attachment, Elias couldn't ignore the feeling that trouble was brewing outside his clinic. Strange occurrences had begun disrupting his routine. Tools went missing without explanation, lights flickered erratically, and shadows moved unnaturally in the corners of his vision. One evening, as he locked up for the night, he noticed footprints in the mud near his door, too large to belong to any ordinary person. His instincts screamed danger, yet he refused to abandon Orcs. Instead, he installed extra security measures around the clinic, hoping to deter whatever or whoever was watching them. The next day brought an unexpected visitor. A tall, elegant woman entered the clinic, claiming her pet lizard had escaped and asking if Elias had seen anything unusual. Her demeanor was calm, but her sharp gaze scanned every inch of the room. Elias felt uneasy but played along, assuring her he hadn't encountered any lost pets recently. As she turned to leave, she paused briefly, glancing toward the back room where Orcs rested. "If you do find something," she said with a faint smile, "let me know." Once she was gone, Elias exhaled sharply, realizing she might not have been who she claimed to be. That night, he sat beside Orcs, stroking its smooth scales. "We're in this together," he murmured softly. Orcs let out a low hum, leaning into his touch. For the first time, Elias allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, fate had brought them together for a reason. Little did he know, the storm closing in around them would soon force him to confront truths about Orcs and himself that would change everything. But for now, all he cared about was protecting the creature that had become so much more than a patient. It was family.